Yeah, so thanks everybody for coming this morning. This is our regular Monday morning meeting at 10 a.m. Eastern. And there's some people here that are regulars, and that's great. And I really appreciate you coming every week. Now, obviously, you're getting something from it. Um, this morning, I had some technical issues, so that was kind of freaking me out about my show here, but I figured out how to get around that. And that's one thing about technology I've always said is that technology is great while it's working. If it stops working, then I don't know, kind of like planned blackouts. I don't know. Anyway, so we got to be careful about technology too, that we don't become too dependent on it. But I figured a workaround on it this morning. Now this, one of my tasks always is to figure out, well, what am I going to talk about, right? What's the theme that I'm going to talk about? And I thought we would start the year off by looking at the big picture here. Because I really started to realize I have sort of a whole model that I work from. That's how I do my coaching. I'm really coaching people on an entire kind of way of doing things. And so I put together a little presentation here to show you what that model looks like. And what I'm hoping is that this is going to be like a 12-month project that we can all work on. So it'll certainly help me, but it's going to help all of us because we're all going to do this collectively. And essentially what we're trying to figure out is what's the best way to run a business when, we're being confronted now with all of this new technology like AI, right? So what's the best way to move forward into the future in order to do that? And what it's really asking us all to do is do things differently. And of course, a lot of people don't want to do things differently. They want to keep things the same. But that's kind of the point of my little presentation here I'm going to do, is that that's not a good strategy, right? So let me just share my screen here. And I guess we'll all have some food for thought here this morning. Okay. Let me put that here. Organize myself a little bit. There we go. Be better. There we go. So, the way I am, I'm always big on coming up with names for things. So I thought, well, what's the name of this whole big picture that I'm trying to help people navigate? And I'm calling it the Future Forward system, like Future Forward Bishop business system. And this is like basically what I'm presenting here is kind of the way that I think about how we should navigate the future. But this is just version 1. So this is what I want to really have help from you, is to co-create this together, and that something new and even better will emerge from this. So we're just on version 1. By the time we get through the 12 months here this year, we might be on version 12 by that point. And it will all have this really cool operating system that we didn't anticipate at the very beginning. So that's kind of the project that I hope we can all work on here. So I'm certainly going to work on it. And each time you come on Monday, we'll just keep building on that and have more and more discussion around it about, basically what works and what doesn't. Okay. And so I call this a master business system for the age of hyperintelligence. And I don't say for the age of AI, because it's actually more than that. AI plus all the other technologies like big data, the Internet of Things, even the blockchain, which is sort of out of favor right now, and so on. These are all technology, the metaverse. These are all technologies that all fit together. I call the hyperverse, and all of these technologies are potentially hyper intelligent, which means that they keep getting smarter and smarter all the time. So this is what we're looking for, is this master business system that we can all use and work from. Okay, so that's the name of it anyway, at least for now. We might come up with a better name for it. Everything is a work in progress here. So I've coached like 5,000 business people, and that's a lot of people. That's over like the last 35 years. And one of the biggest issues I see is that people get kind of, I call, fat and happy. Business is going along pretty good. They're not thrilled about every part of it, but it's what they're used to. And they sort of just like things to kind of go along like that, right? Nobody really wants things to change, right? Unfortunately, the world has other ideas around that, and things keep changing. And so now, like we said, AI is this big game changer, and everyone now is really starting to come around to realizing that. I think they said something like, there was something in the paper yesterday about maybe 60% of jobs will be impacted by AI in the near future. So that's a lot of people that are going to have their world turned upside down a little bit. Not necessarily for a bad in a bad way, but it's just going to be disruptive, right? It's going to change the status quo. So what we want to do is be future forward, okay? And I like that expression because it's just kind of the right amount of effort that we need to put into this. Like you don't have to go crazy and freak out and say, "Oh my God, what's going to happen here?" It's just they got to kind of lean into the future, right? Just lean into it and say, "It's inevitable that things are going to change, and I want to be right there as it's changing, maybe even ahead of it. But I just want to lean into it." Okay, you don't have to get 10 years away and up into the future, take a time machine, but you just need to keep leaning into the future. What a lot of people do, though, they kind of go, "That's it. I'm not going to go any further. I don't want to go any more into the future." And I'm seeing that with people with AI. Like this is the one they're saying, "Okay, this is it. That's as far in the future as I want to go." I've been playing along here with the smartphone and social media and all this stuff. But now with AI, that's as far as I want to go. And they've stopped leaning into the future. And, you can see that that's not even remotely a good strategy, right? So watch out for that. There's so many reasons why you want to lean into the future anyway, like just for your own sake, for your own spirit in a way. I just see a lot of people that I have as friends and at my age at this point are retiring or retired. And I spent a week with a friend of mine who's retired. And at the end of it, I said, "You got to find something to do, pal. Like you haven't got anything to do." Okay. And he says, "I know, I know." He says, "I thought retiring was going to be the answer." And I said, "No, no, you need to figure out something. You don't have to be working all the time or anything, but you got to find something to do to keep yourself, useful and occupied. So he'd stopped leaning into the future. He's an unbelievably ambitious guy and very successful, and then retired, and all of a sudden turned into a couch potato. So I said, that's not going to be very healthy for you. So even for that sake, it's good to lean into the future. So here's a little graph, and I don't want to go through every little detail of this, and it may be hard to make out on the screen there, but I just want to talk about some of these things, whether you can read that or not. I'm just going to talk about this. So what I'm really asking you to consider is to be a future forward entrepreneur. So that's the term I'm using. And so what does that mean? Well, first thing is if we go down to like at 9 o'clock there, committed to being an entrepreneur. So I've talked to lots of people and they're saying, "Well, I might get a job or I might have my own business." I said, "Well, that's your biggest choice you got to make right there. You got to decide, are you really in or out when it comes to being an entrepreneur?" So at a certain point in my life, I realized I can't work for anybody else. I'm on my own here. I got to be my own boss or whatever. I'm an entrepreneur forever. That's it. There's no other choice. I just got to keep doing that. And once you commit to being an entrepreneur, that means that you're living a completely different life from people who aren't entrepreneurs. And one of them really is that you wouldn't really ever want to stop doing that. So people say, "Well, when are you going to retire, Bill?" And I go, "That just ain't happening because I don't know what I would do with myself, and I would, turn into a couch potato again." So for me, it's just like I just want to keep doing stuff and being an entrepreneur. So regardless of what I end up doing, the entrepreneur part is the common ingredient there. Then like around 10 o'clock there, it's leans into the future, as I've talked about. They're always just saying, "What's the next thing? What's the next thing?" Right? That's a key piece of being a future forward entrepreneur. It's just always like, what's the next thing that's going to happen? Where are things going? maybe I could be part of that. It's exciting, right? Um, next one, maybe 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. Focus first on helping people. So this is very good as a focus, because a lot of people who think, oh, entrepreneur, you're just all for yourself, you're just trying to make money. And I know lots of people think that, oh, you're an entrepreneur, so you're just all about, you're just you know, just think about yourself. And I go, no, actually it's completely opposite, but I can't make a business if I don't focus first on helping people. So that's the really, really key here. And I listen to a lot of people talk about technology and AI and stuff. And I go, okay, that's all great, but how is this helping people? Like, can we just begin with that and then discuss it in that way? Because that's why a lot of people are turned off by it. Everybody's just like, hey, I can do this, I can do that. Okay, how does that help me? Right? Okay. Focused on enhancing well-being. So if we're going to help them, I want there to be well-being to come out of that. And that really it's almost an ethical thing, because a lot of times we have things that we might do that are not necessarily trying to help the other person have well-being. It might be trying to help us have well-being. But, and then we can talk about that all day long, about companies that have been involved in that kind of thing, where they just really have not really had the well-being of their customers in mind there. So, but I believe that ultimately it's not sustainable if you don't have that attitude. Next one at the top is you're always working on a big idea. So you always have a project that's a future forward project. That's your big idea that excites you to say, this is what the next thing's going to be. So while you're going through, in a way, so the drudgery of running your present business, perhaps, like there's a lot of hard work that you have to do in a business, right? But if you always have that big idea, future big idea in mind that you're working towards, then that's exciting. And maybe you only have a bit of time to work on it, but it kind of gives you, a lot of energy around what you're up to. So, so that's what I always feel like. I love what I'm doing, but at a certain point, it's like you've been doing it for a while, right? And then you have this one thing that you're working on. That's the next new thing. It's your big idea. And that's really gets you out of bed in the morning, right? So the next thing is, it sort of goes without saying, but it's like it needs to be said. You're always creating new value in the world. That's a huge thing that an entrepreneur does, right? So always creating new value in the world. That's not the way most people are. Okay, they created something, they invented something in 1980, and they've been selling that thing ever since. And that's it. They just hope they can just keep selling that same thing. But the marketplace doesn't care about that. They're saying, well, what do you got that's new? So if you're not always creating new value, then the marketplace will start to get bored of you, right? So we always have to be doing that. And you have to be the kind of person that likes to do that. Not everybody's like that. I get it. But if you want to be a future forward entrepreneur, that's what you're going to be doing. The next thing, which is part of what we're doing here, is that you co-create in collaboration. So you're saying, okay, this isn't just about me and my ego. This is about creating something for the betterment of everybody. So let's work together as a group to do that. That's really challenging for a lot of people too. I have these networks that I've started, including this one. And some people are totally into that. Other people are like, they don't even get it. It's like, what language are you talking about here? It's like Latin or something. They don't understand anything what we're talking about. Co-create and collaboration. Like, that's not how I was brought up, but this is how we can really create some amazing new things in the world, is to do it together, right? Always evolving, always growing, always improving. So that's fantastic. That's what we want to be too, right? Don't care how old you are, what age you're at, what condition you're in. It's like, this is your opportunity. This is what life's about, right? So always evolving, growing, and improving. And so that's really fun. Now, next thing is down around 4 o'clock, I guess. Use future forward business models and strategies. Okay. So this is what we're going to talk a lot about this year as well, is what are those? So for my big one is new factory thinking. That's the model that we're talking about here. The airport, we've talked about that. Being a value hub, looking at, how can I create a platform or a network business on? These are future forward business models, right? And once we start to think about those, well, then we realize, okay, that's where the world's going. All businesses are going to be like that, or at least the successful ones are going to be like that. I want to have a business that's designed that way. Always learning and adopting new technology, right? So we're talking about AI. We're always learning about that, hopefully. And then because that's kind of thing that you just got to keep learning about, because every day something new comes up, and you got to kind of keep up, right, with what's happening there. It can be a little overwhelming, but just do the best you can. Just say, I just need to spend some time, just keep learning about this. I don't want to be left behind there at all. At the bottom there, 6 o'clock, takes action, learns, and then takes action again. Now, this is also, I don't know who did anybody teach us this? I don't know, but you take an action, it might work, it might not. Okay. Whatever that action was, that was the point of it, was to find out whether it worked or not. Okay. So there's so many things I've done in my business. I said in the little newsletter I sent out earlier yesterday, I said, I've done so many things in my business, helped so many people do so many things. And we just found out, oh, that didn't work. Now, that wasn't a failure. That was a learning experience. Okay. And it was like, oh, that doesn't work. Okay, well, we won't do that again. What else? Try next thing. Try something else. Oh, that worked. Okay, keep doing that. Okay. Do it along. Oh, no, it doesn't work anymore. It did work, but no, it doesn't. I have to change it again. And I just see people, they are afraid to try anything because they worry that it's not going to work. And I go, yeah, but that's how you learn. That's what an entrepreneur does. So, I know people have been an entrepreneur. They've tried stuff. They went bankrupt, tried again, went bankrupt. The third time, they got super rich because they kept learning. And from what happened, they go, okay, don't let that happen again. I pretty well learned everything backwards about business. I knew nothing about business when I started it. And I made every mistake. And from those mistakes, I go, oh, yeah, right. That's how I learned how to run a business, was basically by making every mistake, frankly. And the last one is anchored in goodwill. This is key, okay? Is that we need to be anchored in goodwill, because otherwise, we're not going to be able to really proceed with, in a way that makes us flourish, I guess. So we have to have that. I remember, I don't know if you ever read it, but it's called The Greatest Salesman in the World, I think, or The Greatest Secret in the World, by Og Mandino. You might have read it. It's like kind of the ultimate self-help book in a way. That was the first one I ever read. And the first chapter was basically about it. If you don't have goodwill, it's not going to work. And I think people try to make a business work where they didn't really it didn't emanate from goodwill. And that became an issue. So, because ultimately, things just kind of fell apart. So those are our, that was a lot of information I gave you, but I'm trying to sort of set up a way of us to think about ourselves and what we need to do in order to be successful. And I do think that's very inspiring. For me, just even to work on that yesterday was very inspiring, to say, yeah, this is who I want to be. I'm not always this way. Maybe I don't always have goodwill. Maybe I need to keep catching myself there. I'm not always leaning forward in the future. Got to catch myself there. Am I always co-creating, or no, not always? I want to be do it myself kind of thing. So these are good guideposts for us. So the primary thing, like I was saying, is this idea of just leaning into the future. Okay, it's just like not being averse to the future, because I think that's really what the future has gotten a very bad reputation at this point. I mean, people just like think about the future and I go, yeah, it's going to be terrible. And maybe, but on the other hand, that's just a self-fulfilling thing, right? So tend your own garden at least, and say, I'm going to lean in the future, make the future as best I can for myself and other people. That's what I'm going to do here. All right. So the foundations of this kind of thinking, there's these key foundations are down the bottom there at like 9 o'clock. Relationship first versus product first. This is the fundamental foundation of everything I teach people about. And it really is what I learned in the first class of marketing when I took marketing in college. And first class, but pretty well everybody failed that first class because they were product first. So most of us think, when I think about my business, I think about my product first, and then I go out and try to sell it. I'm coming with a new idea. I think of a product, and then I go and sell it. Right? I invent something, a product or a service. Relationship first is different though. Relationship first is start with who you're trying to help, figure out what's going on with them, then come up with a solution to that, and then sell that. And that's going to be much more marketable. That's marketing 101 first class. Okay. Most people never do that. They're completely the other way. That's why it is the first class, because it's the key there. So figure out who you're trying to help, and then, do that, and then invent things for them, for those people, as opposed to inventing something and then trying to go find a customer. Then we have new factory versus old factory thinking, and I've talked a lot about that. But essentially, old factories are product first, and they're an assembly line. We're just pumping out the same thing all the time. New factory is built around a particular kind of customer, relationship first, and it is evolving, constantly evolving, because it's a value hub. So we're always thinking, what else could we do to help those people? And we could end up evolving into a completely different business. You could be in a business of giving them hammers and screwdrivers and stuff, and eventually you evolve into, having a restaurant where you're serving them food or something. Like it just evolves, because that's what happened with the marketplace, and that's what happened with you. And that's okay. So that's why this is a much more sustainable thing, because if you have a product first, then it's a black and white thing. Either people want it or they don't. If they want it, we're good. If they don't, we're out of business. Doesn't work. Scaling your business. Everybody talks about scaling your business, the 10x thing. It's all over the place, 10x this and that. Scale up. And I go, what are we scaling up? So if we're scaling up an old factory, then eventually, actually, we scale it up to a place where we don't even like running it anymore. And it becomes this really weighty thing with a lot of overhead and stuff. I did that. I've been there, done that. And eventually, a business kind of outgrows itself, and that it starts to go over the cliff. It happens all the time. And everybody's encouraging it just to grow, grow, grow that. I go, yeah, I'd like to grow, but why don't we do it virtually? Do it in a virtual way. So that's why we talked about last week, passive income, right? How could I grow and scale my business and create passive income? That means other people, as it grows, more and more people are doing stuff, but I'm not the one doing it. That'd be better, right? That's more well-being. You're co-creating. So these all would fit together. So we're to scale virtually, right? And that leads to the next one: virtual value creation versus tangible value creation. So we're very familiar with tangible value, right? Anything you can hold in your hand. I've got a pen here. I've got my iPhone. I've got a microphone. I got all these tangible things around me. But that's only just one part of the value proposition. There's all these other intangibles that we don't even think about typically. So when I go to Starbucks and I pay $5 for a cup of coffee, I'm paying maybe 50 cents for the tangible thing, the cup of coffee, which I drink tea actually, but no matter, cup of tea, and $4.50 for the ambiance and the whole kind of experience of going in there, the kind of emotional value that is virtual value, okay? And intangible value. So going forward into the future, if you're leaning into the future, 99% of all value to be created going into the future will be invisible and intangible. And as a matter of fact, more and more tangible things will disappear. So that's what's happened with the iPhone did that, right? So many things that used to have, like even like a flashlight and camera and all those things you don't have anymore. You just have the phone, right? And so that more and more of it's become virtual and intangible, and those things have disappeared. So as we go forward in the future, we're going to think more about intangible value as opposed to tangible value. Doesn't mean you wouldn't have something tangible, that's fine. But it's that there's so many other things you can create that are intangible. And for people who have their head around this. They just think that's all just nonsense. But it's just where all the value is being created, right? Um, Purpose-driven technology versus technopia. So technopia is a term I coined in my book, The Strategic Marketing for Digital Age in 1995, because I saw that happening with the internet. I saw people going crazy over the internet. The internet's great, it's amazing, you can do anything, amazing, amazing, amazing. The dot-com revolution. I said, yeah, that won't work. And then I said that, I can't say I predicted when the dot-com bubble would burst, but I said we're in a bubble because everybody's got technopia. They're all just like, this is the greatest thing, Yeah, but what's the purpose of it? Does it, if you have a company that, sells kitty litter, kittylitter.com, that doesn't mean necessarily it's going to be a huge business. It's because it's got .com at the end of it, right? It's kitty litter. Okay. So what's the purpose, of it? So it's once we begin with the purpose, then technology can be very useful. But purpose, so we're going to think, well, what's the purpose of this? So we're not raw technology, raw. This is, what's the purpose first? What's this problem we're solving? Okay. Or needs to be solved, and then how can this technology solve that? I mean, it's all very natural with AI and stuff, where all these tools have come out, and it's all really fun, exciting, you can fiddle around with it and everything. But at a certain point you go, okay, what am I using this all for? Like, I'm kind of at that point now. I've got all the excitement of last year about it, just playing with it and everything. And everything new time somebody comes, okay, that's cool, But then I go, yeah, but what am I going to use this for? I got to come back to that, because otherwise I'm really kind of wasting my time, right? Marketing funnel versus a sales funnel. This is a huge thing that I've been teaching people forever. Most of us at best have a sales funnel. If we're doing sales at all, we're trying to sell our thing, knocking on doors, trying to sell stuff. And that's the sort of short-term solution to everything. But it doesn't work now. Going into the future, sales is not going to be good because people are overwhelmed. AI is going to hyper ramp up all these sales pitches. You're just going to get so many from so many people, and you're just going to block them all out. You're going to have an AI to block out all the salespeople, right? Your AI agent, block out the salespeople. I don't want to hear about it. So then how do we get to the people now? Well, we have to do marketing, and marketing is a whole different thing. Marketing is getting people to come to you. I'm going to Calgary because I'm doing marketing. I get people to come to me. Even though I'm going out there, they're going to ultimately come to me when I'm at that event. And that'll be part of my marketing funnel, which is much wider, okay, and much deeper, but it takes a little longer to prime it. So this is why people often don't get there, because they either don't know how to do marketing or they aren't patient enough. So to prime a marketing funnel takes maybe a few months to do properly, but then once it's primed, it just keeps bringing you more and more prospects on a large amount of prospects. So marketing funnel. And then co-emergence versus competition. I'm a very competitive person traditionally. I played competitive tennis. Anyone that knew me back in the day would say Bill's one of the most competitive guys ever. Okay. And I go, yeah, okay. And I could see though that how that would take me only so far. And that nowadays though, it's more about collaboration, co-creation, and co-emergence. What that means is, and I'll talk more about that this year, is that like for example, with AI, right? They train an AI, and then there's these emergent properties that come out of it. Like the things come out of it that are like, we didn't even know it could do that. We didn't train it to do that. We didn't train it to write code, and suddenly it knows how to write code. That's crazy. That's an emergent property. So if we co-create together and with AI together, these new emergent things are going to emerge. And I think that human beings are going to discover, once they get past their initial trepidation, that by working with AI, it's all kinds of new human abilities will emerge from that were latent and we didn't even know we had from that. So that's a really, really exciting part of this whole thing. So these are our foundations. And like I say, we're going to create this whole system together, okay? If you want, it's up to you how much you want to participate in this, but we're going to do this together. So each of us are going to be creating our new factories. They're going to have our big idea. We're going to be leaning forward into the future. We're going to be figuring out together how we're going to all do this. How do we navigate this world? The more people we have in this group, the better, the more powerful that co-creation will become, right? And this is what we're going to be specifically working on in this process, okay? So we're all going to have a vision for where we're going. So you want to start thinking about that. That's the first thing. If you walk away from today, just be working on that. Say, what's my vision for the future of my business? And just create it as a separate idea from your existing business. Say, this is my existing business. This is, my future vision. Like, I have a taxi company, I want to create Uber. I have a hotel, I want to create Airbnb. I have Blockbuster, and I want to create a streaming service like Netflix or something, like, right? Okay, so it doesn't have to be that techy, but whatever it is that you're thinking, this is what I really, really want my business to be like. Okay. Then you're going to have a big idea. And the big idea is really the value proposition or value position of what is going to make it work, right? So you can say, yeah, I got this vision for this future business, but how does that play out in the marketplace? So like, why would people want this, right? What's my big idea? What am I going to be selling, right? What am I going to be selling? Then we're going to work on future forward strategies. Now, my book, Dancing with Robots, there's 29 future forward strategies in there. So if you haven't read that book, you should read it. And these strategies are the exact opposite of all the strategies that are typically taught in business school, because these are the strategies that work today, not back in the day. So we're going to talk lots about that too. Future forward packaging. Packaging is key here. So you've got your great big idea, you got these good strategies, but if you don't package it properly, like with the right words and names and intellectual property and so on, processes, then it just isn't going to hold together, right? It's going to be kind of a dog's breakfast. It won't look very professional. So that's why, I talk about naming things, giving things a name, and having processes, and, packaging up 3 levels of your programs and so on. That's packaging. And we got to get the right technology in place, right? So what combination of, for example, AI are we going to use, and how is that going to work? And are we going to use these GPTs that ChatGPT has? Are we going to be using Gemini, Google Gemini application? We're going to use a combination of those things. Are we going to build agents and so on? This year is going to be really quite amazing when it comes to what these AIs can do. So we're going to go, okay, how do I bring those to bear on what I'm trying to do here, and not just get mired in all kinds of fun, flashy stuff that maybe doesn't really help us, right? Our future forward community, this is what we are, right? We're a community of future forward people. And anyone by the way, that you think they're future forward or could be and should be, then get them in here. Bring them into this meeting. Doesn't cost anything, right? There's no, all you got to do is show up and be part of it. And the last one is the future forward life. And that's actually the biggest one of all, because it's like, okay, what kind of life am I going to have? Like, if I'm going to be doing this, and what's my life going to be like? Is this going to all make my life better, or is it going to make my life worse? And what about my family and everybody else? I got a granddaughter. She's like 2.5. She's amazing, but she hasn't got her first iPhone yet. And I said, when's that going to happen? Yeah. And I go, that's worrisome, right? What's going to happen to her? So, with these are big issues that have to be part of the discussion, because if the whole thing's about having purpose here, the biggest purpose is to make our lives and everybody else's life better. And so we need to be smart about it and not just let everything happen by default. Because you can just imagine what's going to happen with AI and all these avatars and stuff like that. People are going to get lost in there, and then they're going to start having maybe it won't be so good, right? Initially it feels fun, and then all of a sudden you're caught, right, in something maybe you don't want to be caught in. So how do we make our life better, right? So this is my vision for the whole thing. I'm calling it the Future Forward Bishop Business System. I thought I'd put my name on it. So this is really coming from me. It's my vision of it. I hope you'll share the vision with me. Okay, so that's my little talk there this morning. And what I'm interested in hearing is from each of you, if you could, as I'm really going to call on everybody here, and anyone that's got their video off, if you could turn it on, that would be very nice. Otherwise, we feel like you're kind of lurking. I'd like to start with Mike, actually, Mike Laurie. What part of that presentation did resonated with you, if anything? What part would you take away from that you'd like to
Well,
focus on?
yeah, the idea of actually sitting down and thinking about your future. I
Mm-hmm.
think we all get caught up in the day to day, and I know when I work with you, I do think about the future, but other than that, I don't really. I mean, in
Yeah.
a comprehensive way.
Well,
So
it's you don't have to be thinking about the future every second. I don't think that's a very good thing because that you're not in the present, obviously. Um, and then being mindful of the present is good. Like we need to know what's going on right now, and this is important. But it's like to say, well, on a regular basis, I need to just take some time to think about that, right? Maybe if
yeah,
it's just for a few minutes every morning before you start working. It's a sort of the question is, what do I want going
yeah,
forward? What do I want? And that's a good thing to ask yourself every day. Because you can get on a train and maybe you go into the wrong station, and you got to each day you got to say, well, is this the train I want to be on right now? Or maybe I need to turn around and go into another station, you know. So can you volunteer someone else?
Well, Bill, it's let's see. I think you have created an exceptional mastermind, and if we will cooperate over the next 12 months, we can all find ourselves surprisingly surprised by what we can create.
Yeah, yeah, that's my point of that whole co-emergence, right? So, and that's it's co-emergence things that are unexpected and yeah, and I like the word surprise, delightfully surprised. I think that's what we're looking for. Working together will be great. Um, who'd like to go? Brent.
What
Brent, you sound like Darth Vader right now. So something's happened to your microphone. I don't know.
okay, that's
Doesn't sound
better. No,
no.
okay.
You sound like Darth Vader just while he was
Step back
dying.
and then I'll
We're gonna come
let
back to you.
somebody else go.
Okay, yeah. So sorry about that. Just fix your mic. Get a mic. Get a proper mic. Okay, like proper mic for this.
Here, Bill.
Okay. Who we got?
Fred.
Fred. Okay, Fred.
So I'm really quite intrigued by a number of the points there. I really the purpose-driven technology really resonates with me now
Mm-hmm.
because I'm creating something, solving some problems for my business that I see the application for other people. So what is the problem being solved?
Mm-hmm.
What will be used for, by
Yeah.
whom, is important, and how that ties in, the marketing funnel, priming the marketing funnel so that there's an alignment with the message and the medium and the market
Yeah.
to use this technology. And we're also right now exploring the prospect of co-creating some of this with other people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, what are some principles to keep in mind on co-emergence, co-creation?
Yeah.
Because there's some real pirates out there and thieves,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and so that it's a reciprocal kind of thing, reciprocity, and respect
Yeah.
for what different people bring to solving a particular problem. Some people get very, very greedy and, oh, that's great, and they I've had this happen to me in the past where people have sort of taken my ideas and gone off and said, it was theirs. And, I primed the pump on the thing. And I'm not greedy in that respect. I mean, I'm quite prepared to share it. But when somebody runs off willy-nilly in another, madly off in a different direction and doesn't start to acknowledge the other people that have been involved with it, then that's a problem. So I'd be interested in your thoughts on that whole
Yeah, yeah.
matter.
Well, it's a bit there'll be a bit of karma there probably in the end. People that do that,
Yeah.
but obviously when you're co-creating, you want to be co-creating with people you can trust.
Yes.
But the thing is that the co-creative group is the competitive advantage if you want to have one, because the other person that breaks away, because I've seen this happen, like people break away and they create their own little thing. Well, then what they've lost is the power of that co-creative group, which because I've had this happen with me as people have broken away and taken my stuff and done their own thing. But frankly, they have. And I go, well, that's fine, but they're still stuck at version 3. We're on version 18 right now.
Well, it's aligned with the whole factory airport, the hub, the value
Yeah,
hub.
yeah, exactly.
That's where it is. I got quite excited by the last one, and I went out and I went into Mighty Network
Oh yeah,
and started to play with that. That was actually very, very cool.
that's a
And
very cool thing. Everyone should check that out for your own
yeah,
purposes there.
yeah, and what I actually realized that it was like a tripwire for me because I've been so focused on the B2C side of my business,
Yeah,
over on the side there, always kind of like a bright shining light coming at me, like look over here, has been the B2B sides of things and the B2B to C sides of things. So
yeah.
what I did is I used Mighty Network to create 3 different networks.
Oh, okay. 3 different subgroups.
Three different subgroups drawing
Mhm.
upon the same root directory of information. So I mean
Mhm.
that's where I am with it.
Well, good. Okay, so you're leaning into the future with that for sure. Okay, who
Well,
else has got something they want to say? Well, Tracy, we've been doing some work together recently.
Mhm.
What was something that might have stood out for you and all those things I mentioned there?
So thank you. So there's a few things really, but I think the first, and you're right, we have been working together for a while. So having a process
Mhm.
key, a plan, a program, packaging, all of that. But what really struck me was was an opportunity to think about something other than my business as it is now, right? So there has been something that I've had in my parking lot for quite some time, and I've worked just a little tiny bit on it, but it's been on the back burner for a year, really.
Yeah.
And this is a fantastic opportunity to pull that out of the parking lot and work on that for future, right? For
Yeah.
building future.
Yeah, cool. So you got something you might resurrect there, maybe.
Definitely. Right.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you see, it's okay to have see that a lot of people say, well, I shouldn't get into that other kind of other thing because I'm losing my focus. But sometimes working on that other thing a little bit, you'll learn something from that you can bring back to the main thing you're doing. So, this is why it's, trying new things is always going to teach you something, right? Who would like to go next? Mitzi, are you there? Are you have your picture right now? Mitzi there? Oh, she's gone away. Okay. Let's go with Harvey. Harvey, are you there? Up in Harvey. I'm calling on the people who are videos or they've gone away.
There we go. I unmuted. Yeah. I thought I had my camera on. Sorry about that.
There you go.
Yeah, overall, I think
There you
this,
go.
I like the approach. As an entrepreneur, I always feel like finding a focus point or a pain point and addressing it and
Yeah.
constantly evolving is the key to change. And so I love that I saw that in your slides. And innovation is constant. So I feel like we got to make sure that we're not resisting change, that we're always ready to adapt. And I like that you covered that. So overall, I like the framework. I'm looking forward to the next couple of talks about this.
Yeah, we're going to build on it for sure. Okay, Dan the man.
Morning, troops. Good to see everybody. I just really think people get stuck in the status quo, Bill. And I
Yeah.
think the status quo overwhelms them. And what I really like is we can become co-creators through collaboration, because I think you're doing this group is we're all collaborating. By doing this group, we're starting to think at a different level with bigger ideas that are, and I kind of like the idea they're founded in the future. So, but they're founded in the future with relationships, which means collaboration. And I think a lot of us think we got to go do this on our own and figure it out on our own. But if we didn't have this group collaborating, we wouldn't have near the ideas that we otherwise would have, which goes to relationships. I really do think it's a good model. And I was just making notes about how I'm going to apply it. So
Yeah.
I just, we got to get unstuck. And you do that by getting co-creators in your life that help you collaborate. That generates a big idea that's founded in the future. And then you work with your co-creators and relationships to expand that idea and turn it into a viable way to serve your community.
Yeah, and here's something to bear in mind, because people might think, well, if I co-create with everyone, then everybody owns part of it. It doesn't necessarily have to be that way. So, when I help people come up with their big idea, and I say, okay, the first thing we got to do is find our co-creators, which are essentially their customers, their best customers. I say, go to each one of them. They don't have to be a group yet, but they just each one of them say, look, I'd like to be a co-creator with me, and just help me, analyze what I'm up to here. I created this first version of it. What do you think? Can you try it? Try it out. And they give you feedback on it, right? And you just go to, say like 10 co-creators help you with it, whether it's in a group or not, right? But they're getting a benefit from it because they're getting the value from that thing that you put in front of them. But you're getting the value because you're getting the feedback, right? And then they feel like they've got an ownership in it. And yet, you own it. You own it 100%, but they're getting the first crack at it, right? So it's like a software program. You kind of give them the beta test. You can say, listen, you get to use this software. We get all the bugs worked out of it. You'll get to use it. And it won't cost you anything, but you still own the software, right? So just bear that in mind. But on the other hand, you could have a co-creator group that everyone's like shareholders in it, if you want to do that way too. That's another model as well, or a mixture of that. So that's a whole topic in itself. Like that's a whole hour of explaining the details of that concept. But just wanted you to know that you don't have to give away your equity in it by having co-creators. What else we got here? What about Jim? James? Yeah.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself.
Yeah,
I
that's
have a
okay.
bit of a cold. I have a bit of a cold.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, this aligns with my thinking, where we need to begin with the future in mind, and the future forward, leaning into ideas, opportunities, not for the purposes other than to help others improve their lives in some way. The status quo is certainly, people get comfortable. I think that there's three things guaranteed in life now: death, taxes, and change, and change on an accelerated basis. And there's only two gears: forward and reverse. You either embrace it and you move forward, or you don't. And I think for me, when I look at the different parts of this, just for the purposes of our workflows, is I like the well-being component of about what the well-being outcomes, and those are somewhat measurable over time. And us as a group collaborating, my initial thought is that the future forward is a template that helps, as we build this collectively, collaboratively, gets to be applied to whatever our own big ideas are. And they don't have to necessarily be someone running off with them. Actually, I take it as a compliment in the past when somebody like CIBC decides to take on my visions of certain things in the marketplace, as an example. And I don't compete with them. But so that's where I see there's a tremendous amount of value, and the value is better as a group, because now we create new minds and ways to look at things, as long as it's done in a respectful way, that there will be differences and we come to agreements as we go forward. So that's my general thought. So thank you.
Yeah, that just what you said just brought up a whole lot of thoughts here from to build on this, is that this idea of, protecting yourself. Like, it's like, I got to protect what I've got, right? And that's the status quo, right? But being comfortable in the status quo and feeling secure in it is actually a delusion. If you try to protect the status quo and you think then you feel good about that, that's actually a delusion, because that's the biggest mistake that anyone can make, is to protect the status quo, because the world just keeps moving on and changing. And the safest way is just to keep leaning into the future and just keep changing, just keep evolving, because that's the safer thing, actually. That's not a delusion, right? So there's that. And then the other thing about people taking your idea, it's like almost like flattery, right? And like I say, it's like, I am really not, I do have sometimes a contract with people and say, like, this is what we've agreed to, and don't steal my idea and all that kind of thing. That's fine. But I'm not heavy-handed about it, because that's just gets you into a weird place, believe me, of trying to protect everything. And I've seen people do that, and it just kind of eats them up, actually. Whereas you just keep going, if I just keep moving forward, I just keep building and being very generous and sharing what I have, I will keep moving forward. If someone then takes it and runs away, and then I go, well, that's too bad for them, because they're no longer part of the evolution of what's going on now. And so they actually are just stuck at level 3, and we're at level 19 now, and they just didn't come along for the ride. So, this is also a delusion to think, if I take it now, grab what I've got and go over here and hold on to it. It's just like, it isn't gonna, you have to be much more fluid with it, I think. But very good. Thank you. Anyone else that want to say something? Brent,
I'll
you're
give
back.
a try again, Bill.
Oh, there you go.
Is that better?
Darth Vader took his mask off. Cool.
Yeah, I did a restart. So
okay, good.
I think it was Teams fighting with Zoom, I think,
Oh
in
yeah.
the back.
Don't talk about Teams. I don't like Teams. Go ahead.
But anyhow, I guess what I liked about it is it helps me with how. And if you say, who am I? And you have two choices, alluding to what someone else was saying. I'm a backward thinking person. That's not really how we want to label ourselves. We want to say I'm a forward thinking person. Yeah. And so you go there, and it's like, yeah, but what does that mean? How do I do that? And as an entrepreneur, it is very easy to get to a certain level and feel comfortable with that. So how do you push yourself out of that? And I think what you've laid out is a good framework to, just keep challenging ourselves and pushing ourselves to be that forward-thinking person. It puts a descriptor around it, as opposed to just a name, I think, in terms of how we go about it. So I think that's my takeaway, trying to incorporate that as a challenge, of course.
Yeah. Well,
Can I make
okay, go ahead.
I'm just going to make a quick comment, just in terms of the group. When you look in the mirror every day, Brent, it's hard to be accountable. But when you have others who are a part of the group, I think it helps us, because we've said what we want to do and how we want to do it, and people will ask how we're doing. And it helps motivate us, I think, as well, to do this as a group.
Yeah, exactly. It's that accountability to other people is always I think, important, right?
Hey, Bill, can I add something to that as well? I just picked up. So interestingly enough, I actually work in strategic foresight and collaborative design. So this conversation is really on point for the type of work I do. And yet it's been really interesting to be a part of this conversation. And I just wanted to comment on what Brent said about being forward thinking versus backward thinking, and how no one wants to think about themselves as being backward thinking. But an action actual reality is it's much easier to think backwards than it is to think forwards for most people, for all people. And so one of the tricks that we use in strategic foresight that might be helpful to you is to actually lean into that and think backwards, but think backwards from a future state. So you can actually place yourself in an imaginary future where you have obtained your ideal, you know, you've achieved your goal, you've placed yourself into this ideal future where, you know, you've achieved whatever it is that you want to achieve, and then work backwards from that to uncover how you actually went about doing it. And that might be a good mental trick to help you think forwards, backwards, if that makes any
Well, it
sense.
kind of combines both things, right? So
That's a cool concept.
so that's a
Yeah.
good thing. Yeah, I think somebody called it backcasting, maybe is another.
Exactly. Visioning
Yeah.
and backcasting is,
Right. Yeah.
you know, one way to do it. There's many different ways to do it, but one way to do it is to, you know, come up with this vision that's really detailed. Like when I go with other people, I even think about like, okay, so you're in this desired future, you've achieved what you wanted to achieve. What do you see around you? What do you smell? You know, what's the tactile feeling around you? What are you touching? And then really place yourself in that future and then work backwards to what you did to get there.
Well, that's extremely helpful. Thank you for sharing
Yeah,
that.
no.
So that could so maybe that what we can be working on this week if you want. And you can pick any one of those elements to work on, right? But that vision, which is what the first piece of the sort of process is to work on that and then say, okay, well now if I to work backwards from that, what would happen just before I achieved that, and then what would happen, you know, like maybe 10 steps. So I started step 10 is having it, and then 9 is what would it be happening at 9, 8, and working way back. So I think that I'm going to do that. Maybe when I'm on my trip to this afternoon on the plane, I'll do that. That'd be fun. That's very good. And then, you know, you could use ChatGPT to have that conversation with too, right? Or Pi, which we've talked about Pi. I actually like talking to Pi more than ChatGPT. Like Pi's personality better or something. But this is the kind of thing that you could have a really good chat with the AI about your future and doing the backcasting. That could be really fun. Who knows what it'll come up with that, right? Because it's a dialogue. It's like a dialectical thing, right? You got to have a dialogue with somebody about it, right? So if you show up next week with a vision, I'll say, hey, anybody got their vision? And if you want to share it. And the other thing about a vision is it's not something you just do once. Like one exercise I've done was every day for 30 days, I wrote down my vision. And I wouldn't look at the one I had done the day before. I would just write it again, but I kept them all. And then I saw how that vision evolved and how much deeper it got and how much less superficial it was from the first part. And that was a really good exercise, because at that point I really knew, you know, where I wanted my train to go and what station I was trying to get to. So that's another thing you might try. Let's just have a couple more comments. I need to break this off a little earlier today because I got to catch a plane, but anyone else want to share anything? Anybody?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So I completely understand the, you know, future forward, thinking forward, but here's my question, especially related to technology. There are so many new things that come out.
Yeah.
How do you stay current without losing focus and always being always chasing the next new shiny object?
Yeah. Okay, that's a good one. Okay, so when something new comes out like ChatGPT, it's like it's just useful to just go in there and try it, right? Or if some new, you know, Google comes out with their Gemini, just go and try it. Just even just for the most basic thing, right? Just try it. So you know, at least you know it exists and you've worked on it a little bit. So you just had a little bit of experience with it, right? But here's the thing about that purpose-driven technology, is say, think of something you want. Okay. Like it's I'd like to create a brochure, or I'd like to create a website, or I'd like to create a business plan, or I'd like to create some software or something to do something. Start there and then say, okay, now how could this help me do that? you know, because it's true. I mean, at this point, you could spend all day long fiddling with all this stuff, and it would be a waste of time ultimately, because it would be so much superfluous things that you wouldn't really need to know. But if you said, yeah, maybe this is what I want, right? So maybe you can't get it right away because it doesn't quite exist, but then suddenly you hear, oh, there's this thing. Like yesterday was exactly, I was on LinkedIn and I was looking at this guy, he sent a post or something. I looked at it and then I looked at his resume and then I looked at it deeper. And then there was this thing that he had done, and there was this little thing about some platform. So I won't get into right now, but some software platform. I went, oh, and I clicked on it and went, oh my God, this is what I've been trying to figure out how to do forever. And this platform does it. Right? Because I'd already been thinking about, I'd really like this to happen. And then just by serendipity, I discovered it through just looking at LinkedIn. And I clicked on it and went, these people have figured out how to do this. This is amazing. So if I get, I have to investigate it more, but if it's good, I'm going to show you that particular platform because it's cool. So that's what happened with Mighty Networks. I said I want to have groups and I want to have them come together, and then I was sort of fiddling around and somebody said Mighty Networks, and I went, oh, look at that. Oh my God, that does exactly what I want.
So Bill, just in conjunction with Tracy was saying there,
yeah,
one of the things that I do find that you've been able to do is bring forward some of these things that I would have no idea about them, where they are, how to interact with them. But if you're looking at this 12-month plan, is that something that we could look at saying, okay, well, here's the, I don't know, whatever, the top 5 list, 10 list, 2 list, I don't care. But, you know, in the different areas, I think that would be beneficial for me, you know, because I've tried doing some of these different ones and very poorly, I might add, trying to get into them. But, and most of them have come out of hearing about them here in this group. So, you know, we won't get to try them all, but if we, you know, we should try to make sure that we try these top 3 in each of these different categories, maybe, or something.
Yeah. Well, if I just share here, then I'm going to send you a link. Where is it here? Yeah. Okay. So so this is our directory of resources. Okay. So if anyone suggests something in a meeting and I like the look of it, I'm going to put it in. So I just sent you the link so you can get to that page. Okay. So these are the technologies that we've experimented with and found to be useful. And we're always adding to it. And people too that it can be helpful, like Michael and Doug, you have questions, like more technical questions. So this is where we're just putting all of the different resources there that you might want to, like ChatGPT was the very first one that got put up there, right? The text creation at the time, it's gone beyond that now. But yeah, this is where we're putting stuff. Okay, so so if you want to just get at least hit a start on looking at what's out there, you can check that out. Okay, so that's the link there. That's the whole point of that particular directory, just to answer your question there, Brent. So like I say, if someone else suggests something in the meeting and I go, okay, that's good, I'll put it up on the directory, and then we'll all have a common place that we can go and look for that kind of thing.
So I guess maybe, and I have been able to get to Pi and DALI and some of those, so that's been good. But if there is a consumers reports review, not review, but an asterisk about, you know, on those ones. These are the must-haves. The other ones are, you know, if you're in the art world, you want to know about this maybe, but but it's not as much of a critical. And anyhow, just that's a long list to try and work my way through. Right. And I'm working at it.
Well, that's why I say, like, it's more about just having something you want to have happen in the world, right? And then saying, okay, now how can these tools help me do that?
Yeah.
It's the only way to really save your time a lot of trouble, right? It's like, and ultimately that's how it's all going to be, because it's going to be like, at the end of the day, it's gonna be, what am I doing? Why am I using all this? It's gotta serve some purpose. Otherwise, I'm just fiddling around with it.
Yeah. You know? And you've always said, look at the problem. Don't have it and try and form a problem around it. Have a problem and then try and have it resolve it for you, right? Like, yeah,
either a problem or a goal, right? Okay. You know, because I got a problem, I want to solve it. I mean, usually those are kind of connected, but I you know, the most classic thing for me was last year, I wanted to have this dashboard of all my financial and business information to be on one web page that I could just look at and it's real time can tell me this is how much money we've got, this is how much money's come in, this is what our profit is, this is what how many members we have, this is what the transactions are, everything on one dashboard with graphs and everything. And I worked with ChatGPT to develop the whole thing. It wrote all the software and integrated all the information, and only took a few hours and walked me all the way through it and built me my dashboard, which now saves me unbelievable amounts of time, and gives me an unbelievable sense of well-being because I can just look at the dashboard and go, this is what's going on right now. You know what? And it's okay. Everything's good. Or not. It may not be good. And then I go, okay, I got to deal with it. And that's okay too. But at least I know what's going on. And that I got that because I wanted something. And I said, okay, now can it help me? And I said, could you help me do this? And they say, yeah, I can. And I said, well, how would we do that? So where's the information? And then it said, okay, well, here. And it started writing the code and it started putting it all together. It's like really, truly unbelievable. That's when I was a total believer. That point, I said, we can create anything now. Like it's just going to be incredible.
Yeah.
You know, so the more that you have imagination of something, okay, I would, and also just this future forward, leaning in the future, saying, this is what I'd like in the future that would be better than now. And just articulate that and then go to ChatGPT or whatever and say, hey, this is what I want. Can you help me with it? See what happens. Get on the path. Cool, eh?
No,
Okay, I think I'm going to leave it there because I got to pick up my limo in a minute to go to the airport. But hopefully you found this one good. I got a lot of energy from this one. I found it very energizing myself because we got a model to work from now, right? And I'm going to send out this video. And what I'll do also, I'll send you the slides as well so that you have those diagrams. Maybe that's helpful too. I'll send that out.
Super helpful, Bill.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll see you next Monday.
Okay. Safe flight, brother.
Everybody.
Good trip.
Okay.
Safe travels.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye now.
Good luck.